All right, let's actually switch over to the NFL. We hadn't talked too much football since free agency kind of died down and everything. And one of those big moves in free agency kind of had a little bit of an impact here that we'll talk about in just a few minutes with the Atlanta Falcons. But of course, this draft was, I guess, the draft of the quarterback. In my opinion, I don't know how many of these guys are actually going to be worth anything, but hey, 6 quarterbacks in the first 12 picks. Like, I don't think that's ever been done before, and maybe it has. I don't remember, but it's one of those QB heavy drafts, and it seemed like to me again, like not putting any of these guys down, but it seemed like more just these teams need a quarterback. They're scared that other teams are going to take them, and they're jumping up to get them if they can. And that's kind of what happened here with one of these picks that we'll talk about. That Falcons QB's former team making a pick with a trade there. Let's just kind of start, from the top with Caleb Williams. Of course, the Bears have the Carolina Panthers pick because the Panthers are absolute garbage. They took our pick. They took our pick after being the worst team in the league last year. Now they have our pick because we're the worst team in the league this year. They draft Caleb Williams. That one was not much of a surprise, and especially once they got rid of Justin Fields, that was pretty much a foregone conclusion. I know you were patiently waiting for about 20 minutes for this pick to finally come, and before I just give it to you, I wish the NFL in general would just sit down one day and say, look, this is a little insane with how long it takes to get to the first pick. We know who it is. Get to it. Quit all this nonsense.
Yeah, I think sports in general have got a weird, bad culture with drafts. I mean, I tuned into the WNBA draft not too long before this draft. It was 20 minutes for the Fever to take Caitlin Clark. There's no one else they were taken. It's the same way every year. Especially it always works with the first pick because usually I feel like every year there's a pretty consensus first pick. Maybe in this one there's a little bit of drama on do the Bears take Caleb Williams or they take a different quarterback? But I think it was pretty clear they're going to take Caleb Williams. And so to go through the quarterbacks, I think that that one makes sense. People thought Drake May was headed maybe to Washington, but they step up and get Jaden Daniels, Heisman winner, big rusher. I think I said this in our last NFL video a while back that I would maybe keep Sam Howell around and try to let him help out because he was at least a poised NFL quarterback. But I think Jaden Daniels, aside from obviously the athletic kind of running quarterbacks, except for somehow by sheer black magic, Josh Allen. Have some health issues occasionally. But I think Jaden is a pretty sustainable NFL quarterback. He's a mostly pretty good passer, really good runner, and I think he's going to be able to work with the weapons that the Commanders have brought in very well. Commanders have had a really good offseason. So I think that Jaden Daniels should kind of work well in that system. Then Drake May, I'm not super high on, but he goes to the Patriots, which is maybe fitting if you know anything else about Drake May. Only follows the white quarterbacks in the NFL on Instagram, and when he built his ideal quarterback, let's just say they had a common theme, including when he picked a running ability, he picked Josh Allen. So I'm not going to make any accusations to Drake May, but there's some interesting things going on with that one for sure. Then we get some other big moves, but we'll go ahead and get right into the big move. Well, for one, the Chargers don't take JJ McCarthy. So after months and weeks of Jim Harbaugh being like, hey, that guy's NFL ready, they don't make the stupid idea to bring him to LA. They get Joe Alt, which is a big move. But then the Falcons, who, got Kirk Cousins, was on track to be an MVP before he ruptured his leg last year. With the 8th pick in the NFL draft, select Michael Penix Jr. If you've watched our show, I don't think there's many people who are higher on Michael Penix Jr. than I was. But the draft is also about positional need, and you can make the argument that Kirk is hurt. Was hurt. His age, but they paid him a lot and for a while. They didn't bring him on to do a 1-year thing. They seemingly were ready for him to stick around for a little bit. And then they bring in Michael Penix Jr. It's a little weird. Kirk's team said they were confused by it. They didn't know about it until the Falcons were on the clock. There's a lot of other things the Falcons could do to make their team better. I don't think they need to jump on Michael Penix Jr. to hope to save their team. Penix Jr.'s teammate Rome Odunze goes right after that. You've got plenty of other great weapons on the board. Obviously, the Falcons don't need a guy like Brock Bowers or something like that. But there's plenty of receivers they could have taken. There's, you can get some O linemen, you can work on some defense. But their defense was I think pretty good last year. It's a really weird one. I can't really understand in the realm of QB roulette how the Falcons decide that they need to jump in there this year after getting Michael Penix Jr. So that's a little weird. I'll get more thoughts from you on that in just a second. But aside from that, you pretty much just get JJ McCarthy does go in the top 10. He goes to the Vikings, so he's going to pair up with Justin Jefferson. That will be interesting. And then Bo Nix goes at 12 over to the Broncos, so he'll be competing with Drew Lock potentially. We'll see which one of those guys gets to start. See what Sean Payton is preferring by the end of training camp. But nothing too crazy. I mean, these guys are pretty much all expected. This is a QB heavy draft to go in the top 15-ish, and they all do make it there. It's just kind of maybe the teams they go to. Penix would have fallen a little bit. I don't know. Maybe there's a world where the Vikings take Penix for Justin Jefferson instead of McCarthy if he's on the board. I think that'd be better. But I don't know. I don't know why the Falcons did that. I'm not sure who they were trying to stop from getting him. I'm not sure why they thought they needed him. So what do you think the Falcons are doing? And I guess what do you think about the state of the quarterbacks in this draft anyway?
Yeah, I mean, kind of, more of what I just said. Like, do I really think that they're out of this draft class? You're going to look at me in the eye and you're going to tell me that there are 6 QBs that deserve to be in the top 12? Like, think about it. It's not top 12 out of this draft class. A draft class with a god like Marvin Harrison Jr. They're going to tell me that 6 quarterbacks in the top 12? No. But I understand the positioning because if you look at the teams that are up there, Bears, they needed a QB. Commanders, I kind of figured they weren't going to stick with Sam Howell. They didn't. Sam being around the same age as Jaden anyway, like, I guess it didn't really matter in that sense. And they didn't invest that much in Sam, so it wasn't that big a deal. Patriots obviously needed one. Giants, that one, I didn't think they were going to go quarterback, but that was a possibility there. So it looks like they'll still go with Daniel Jones and just try to get him help. Obviously, he'll need it, both in his own ability, but his teammates as well. Like, he needs a team around him. Falcons were the last team I was thinking about getting a quarterback. Like, that was not even a thought. And then Vikings, of course, they in free agency, like they went and they got Sam Darnold, but like, obviously, that's not going to be like a permanent thing. Like, he's not going to be that guy. Same with like the Broncos. Like, I don't think they're really looking for their guy. I can't. It's hard for me to sit here and say like, oh, beyond those first few quarterbacks, any of these guys can be the franchise quarterback. Bo Nix was good in college. I've seen him. Bo Nix. We were in college at the same time. He ended up staying longer than us, but Bo Nix was good. But is he going to be a franchise guy? Probably not. I doubt it, and I don't think he's going to get too much help. And Sean Payton's a great coach, offensively, but I don't think he's going to get too much help in Denver. So that's, even if Bo Nix ends up being good, like, I think he's going to be kind of handicapped there. JJ McCarthy, like is JJ McCarthy really a top 10 pick? Like, nah. But I guess at the end of the day, you have all these teams that needed quarterbacks, and you figure that somebody's going to take them within that top 15, regardless of whether they really deserve to be there or not. Like, you kind of have to make that move unless you want to wait till next year. Like, unless you want to trade out and get higher picks. Like, if you're in, let's say you're the Falcons, which what they probably should have done is maybe if they want to take somebody, or take somebody of a different position, or if they want to trade that pick to a team like the Vikings because they got their pick from the Jets, or maybe the Broncos, they want to move up and get somebody before everybody else because they picked the last QB of the round. Like, maybe, but I'm not like super high. I don't want to be too negative about these guys, but I'm just not super high on like most of the quarterbacks in this draft. Good, but franchise, I don't know. We'll see. Like, I think the main guy that's probably going to be a sure thing is Caleb Williams. You would think. The rest of them, Jaden Daniels obviously was a Heisman winner, but that was
Not
more
a
of
great
just,
history for those guys.
yeah, that's true too. But that was that 1 year for Jaden Daniels, and he improved obviously from prior years, but that's more 1 years for him. Drake May, again, I think the Patriots thing kind of fits there. Yeah, outside of the rest of the guys, I think he's probably the best option. So, I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna go as far as you did, but it's not my license
White
to
man to
say.
white man.
Yeah, I'm not gonna take the license to say that. So overall, like not horrible decisions. I wouldn't say. Michael Penix Jr. though to Atlanta, like that is a big thing that everybody's talking about. And I can vouch for you. You are probably the biggest Michael Penix Jr. fan in the state. I'll tell you that. At least it might be in the whole South. I mean, I don't know, but you're a huge fan. I liked him this year as well. It's not about him.
Yeah.
It's about the situation. And
If,
his
he, if
mistake.
the
Yeah, go ahead.
if
Because
the,
go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, like if the Vikings got him and put Penix together with Justin Jefferson, I mean, that deep of a pass threat with that much of a catching threat, I'm like,
Right. Exactly. That
that's an
makes sense.
amazing pick. So,
That makes sense. Like that. Maybe that's why maybe the Vikings should have just traded, get further up to get Penix. Maybe he wouldn't have been gone at that point, because Atlanta wouldn't have been there to make that decision. But either way, people that were saying like, oh, it's insurance for Kirk Cousins, right? He's 35, 36. He's coming off of the injury. He might be injured again. You never know, blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, but you don't draft insurance with the 8th pick. And you don't draft insurance with the 8th pick after you just paid that old man $200 million almost. Like if in your eyes he's old and injury prone, which he's not, but if that's your take on it, if he's old and injury prone, why would you give him 200 mil and then decide you want to get insurance for him? If you need insurance for Kirk Cousins, why'd you pay him that money? Those aren't matching. Like if you're telling me that they brought in Kirk Cousins for 1 year, a single year deal, and you think he'll come in and be a mercenary basically for 1 year, get Penix Jr. He sits behind Kirk Cousins, who's been a vet in the league for years. 1 season. And then Kirk Cousins leaves and he gets his final deal somewhere else. Fine. But if you're going to draft Michael Penix Jr., who's like 24, and you got Falcons brass up there talking about he might sit for 4 years. Are you kidding me? Shut up. Like this shut your mouth. Like this is insanity. And as a Panthers fan, I guess we don't have too much room to talk because our front office has been making, booty decisions for like the past 5-6 years. But this is just bad. And Michael Penix Jr. ends up being a god. That's fine. It's not about him. It's just about the situation, the scenario that they're in. It just didn't make sense. And I don't want people to overreact to what we're saying here because again, you can go back, you can watch videos. We've been fans of this guy. But for the Falcons at number 8, it was the wrong thing to do. You need to get Kirk Cousins help now because you paid him all that money. Falcons are probably they're not as bad as what their record shows last year. Like you should have done more to try to help Kirk Cousins this year. But hey, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. Bad decision.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think the rest of the draft from there is not the most notable draft. I mean, there's obviously big move. Marvin Harrison goes to the Cardinals. I think that's massive. I think that fills a huge hole. I don't think any team could have taken Marvin Harrison and be bad except for the Bears. So I think they're okay there. Joe Alt is a big pickup for the Chargers. I think that's maybe the smartest thing they could do. Chargers fans not happy about it, but I think that's just because when you take a guard or any type of O lineman, maybe even D lineman, when it's not one of these skill players or quarterbacks high in the draft, I think people are just kind of like, huh? Except for Penei Sewell, I think kind of broke that a little bit a few years ago. I think Joe Alt is a good pick for them. Malik Neighbors is maybe the better pick for the Giants. Odunze going to the Bears is a massive steal for them to be able to get Williams and then add another receiving threat to a team that has been pretty well revamped. You got Keenan Allen, you got DeAndre Swift. Obviously, we gave them DJ Moore for a penny, so they're doing great over there as far as that goes. I like Brock Bowers to the Raiders. I think that's a pretty good one. I think an underrated thing, and I kind of forgot about it until I saw something a little bit before we recorded. But the Vikings, I'm not super big on them getting JJ McCarthy, but I guess it's JJ or Bo Nix, and I would maybe take Bo Nix, but I don't know. But they do end up getting Dallas Turner at the 17th pick, which I think is a pretty cool little like draft steal there. But then we'll just go ahead and jump straight to this. The Bills, who I'm sure people have you've probably seen post about this by now. By the time this video goes up, but we're going to analyze it. The Bills, who cannot beat the Kansas City Chiefs, decided to give their pick to the Kansas City Chiefs. Who did the Chiefs take with that? Xavier Worthy, a really good, really speedy receiver. And then if I was to think, what do the Bills need right now? Oh yeah, a receiver. So instead of taking Xavier Worthy or anyone else, really, I mean, you got two Xaviers. Matter of fact, actually, there's two chances at an Xavier in these last few picks where the Bills are at. One of them, they trade away and it goes to the Chiefs, their biggest rival. They send a super speedster to the Chiefs, Xavier Worthy, on that Kansas City offense. Probably going to be a pretty good one. Then, maybe less damaging to themselves as the Bills, but then they give their another pick, the one they had from the Chiefs, to the Panthers. So we get in and finally get a first round pick out of what was going to be a horrible time, and we take Xavier Legette, who I'm not mad about. I had a decent year at South Carolina, a good receiver that I think can add some flair to our team. We needed some more receiving threats. We needed a first round pick. And what did the Bills come away with in the first round? Oh yeah, nothing. So I'm a little confused on exactly what they're doing over there. There's obviously some players that are already gone by the time it gets to them, right? There's no Marvin Harrison Jr., but if you're the Bills GM and you thought you were getting him with the pick you had without a trade, you're crazy. So I don't think they were thinking that. But you do get like Xavier Worthy put in your hands, and you're like, I don't really feel like it. So they have the first pick of the second round. That's tonight. I'm not sure exactly what time. There's still some good receivers that they can take with that pick. But I don't really. Sometimes in drafts you see teams playing some defense, right? When you're going to make a trade, I'm sure if you're listening to us, you may have played 2K or Madden and done some career modes. Sometimes when you're doing those draft day trades, you don't really want to stack up one team with a bunch of like certain picks. I mean, you're trying to build your team to be better than other teams, and obviously trades, it's supposed to be a trade. So somebody, it's got to be kind of even, but somebody's going to come out on top. And in this trade, the Bills, I don't think, do any favors to themselves. They give their biggest rival, the team who they cannot get past, an option to pick up a guy who's maybe going to tear them up, and they take a person in the position that the Bills just like lost everything, right? Remember, there's no Stephon Diggs here in the Bills anymore. That room is just like Mac Hollins, Gabe Davis. No, Gabe Davis is gone. It's Mac Hollins, Curtis Samuel. I don't remember who their third receiver is. That's Khalil Shakir, I think, the young player who they already had. Not a horrible room, but by no means a great room, and would definitely benefit from getting some young talent. And they just handed it straight to Kansas City and to Carolina. Again, Carolina I don't think poses as much of a direct threat to the Bills, but it still is just a weird thing. I think the Bills would benefit from having either Xavier Worthy or Xavier Legette. But as a Panthers fan, I will take Xavier Legette. As somebody who doesn't want to see the Chiefs get a three-peat, I cannot believe that Xavier Worthy just went there.
Yeah, I see some people saying, "Oh, Xavier Worthy." People want to think it's that good because he's fast and because of the combine or whatever, right? Then running that crazy 40, and they're like, "Oh, he boosts up because of that." Like, did you watch the Big 12 championship game? Like, did you watch Texas football this year? And we've been talking nothing but trash about Texas since the podcast started, and with podcast jokes every doggone week. It seemed like with Texas is back. No, but if you watch the Texas game last year and you watch Xavier Worthy, you should be pissed with what the Bills have done to the NFL.
Yeah.
Because what in the world are they doing? First of all, I'm not trading with the Chiefs. Second of all, I'm definitely not trading with an AFC, or at least a team that I think can be somewhat competitive. I ain't trading with the Chiefs. Just the same way I wouldn't have traded with the Texans, but that is what it is, But now, since you don't have Gabe Davis, you don't have Stephon, I guess you get Curtis Samuel, but look, your room took a step back. You had a chance to get Xavier Worthy. You let it go. Xavier Legette, obviously from one Carolina to another. I like to pick up there, I like our move. We only moved up one pick, and maybe if the Bills had been right there at 32 still, maybe they would have picked them. But obviously, like they didn't. Obviously, he probably wasn't on their radar. Like if they were willing to make that trade anyway. So like we probably could have just stayed right there at 33 and picked tonight instead of last pick of last night. But for the Bills, I just don't really understand it. And I'm sure I don't think the Bills are going to fall off like crazy or anything. But you cannot seriously tell me, like, unless you can see in the future, you can't sit here and tell me that this was a good decision to pass on multiple wide receivers there. And if you want to move up into the top, top tier of the draft there in the top 10 picks, top 15 ish, like you said, with a trade, to get Marvin Harrison, the only way that was going to happen is probably you have to hold the Cardinals hostage. But Marvin Harrison, Rome, like Malik Neighbors, I mean, any of those three would have been perfectly fine. Like all great receivers. Nah, I mean, I just don't really get it from the Bills. So I'm not really sure what direction they're going in tonight when the draft, second round of the draft starts. And I'm not going to criticize a team that has generally been a consistent, pretty good playoff team over the past 4 or 5 years. But as far as this one situation goes, I don't agree with it at all. And I'm super happy that the Panthers made that pick with Xavier. Either Xavier would have been fine, but Xavier Worthy probably better than Xavier Legette. But I'll take Xavier Legette regardless. Carolina boy, come on down. At least help Bryce Young not get murdered out there.